You know, when I'm thinking about this, I just remembered this the other day, man. This is crazy. I think I was like 21 or 22 years old. I went up to the Boundary Waters with Mike Wander. And, of course, me being a good alcoholic, I packed a half gallon of Windsor. So I didn't touch it. We're about 2 days in. And one night, I drank maybe half of it, and he had some too. And I that night I had gotten enough, and then we go the next day. We're further in, and then that night, right? We got a 7-day trip. That night, I drank what was left, and he had some, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, right? We got 3 more days up there, so. All of a sudden, I got this craving, and I got no more booze, and I'm in the middle of the Boundary Waters. So guess what? I'm up at 5 a.m., and I still got booze in my body. I'm up at 5 a.m. I convince him I forgot about something vitally important, and I go on a marathon paddle straight back, right? And, the hell with the rest of the trip, and I'm paddling like a devil. Mike, don't worry. You just sit up there. I'll paddle. Just sit up there. And I go. Now, the alcohol left my body, so the obsession took over, and I kept going, man. I got to my truck. I got that thing. I raced into town. I got there just before the liquor stores closed, and I got what I needed, and I got enough to drink all the way home. But it just took over. I had to cancel the rest of the trip, and I had to go back to get more. All right, so let's see. Where did I leave off now again? Astonishingly tempered drinker. These allergic types can never, circle never. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. Okay, so guys, that means NyQuil. NyQuil comes with its own shot glass. Man, I relapsed on NyQuil once. NyQuil, pills from the dentist. I don't know if there's any desserts that have alcohol, but we've got to be careful. We get some of that alcohol in our body, and it's gonna get that craving going. Never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them, and they become astonishingly difficult to solve. Next to that last sentence we read, just write step 1, powerlessness. Is powerlessness a word, or should it be powerless? I got powerlessness. So, step 1, powerlessness. And then we're going to highlight the next 5 words. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. You've got to stop for the children. If you don't stop, you're going to get fired. We won't have the money for food. John, I'm your mother. You've got to stop. You're killing me. You know what, man? Stuff like that, it doesn't work for us. It doesn't work. It's too bad, but it doesn't. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. And we're going to highlight to the end of the paragraph. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. So next to that, we just highlighted, right, step 2. Step 2. That's the solution. If we're powerless over alcohol, what the hell do we need? Well, we need some power. That's what we need. If any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. So the doctors are saying, we got nothing, guys. We got nothing. But this altruistic movement, right, this program, the fellowship of the program is actually succeeding where we have failed. Okay, so we're gonna highlight the next 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol, right? I think one guy wrote "duh" next to that, but the sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false, right? Again, does everybody drink like me? I don't know what's true and what's not. Now, some alcoholics, when they read this, they become, they're a little bit offended. They say, no, John, that's not true. I drink because I like the taste. I've always liked the taste of beer. I just love it. And I'll look at these people and I'll say, well, yeah, I like the taste of beer too. Now, I also like the taste of an ice cold Coca-Cola. But I've never sat down and drinking a case and a half of ice cold Coca-Cola, because that Coca-Cola, the beer does something for me that ice cold Coca-Cola does not do, right? So to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. Okay, highlight, they are restless, irritable, and discontented. Just highlight that. And next to that, off to the left, this, I'm not kidding, this is what they had me write. Dry drunk, still an asshole. That's what they had me write, and I'm going to explain that. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. Dry drunk, still an asshole. Unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. So, whenever I tried to quit drinking, I would start to become restless, irritable, and discontented. Everything pissed me off. Everything. And I'm not working these steps. I'm a week off of booze. You better get the hell out of my way. Right? Get the hell out of my way, because I was a dry drunk. I was restless, irritable, and discontented, and I felt the anxiety, I felt the worry, I felt the anger, I felt the fear. All of these things would build up in me, and I was so uncomfortable in my own skin, I could not take it. And then I would start to remember the things that I had done when I'd been drinking, and the guilt, shame, and remorse would build up, and I got even more stress. I just could not take it, and it was extremely unpleasant to be around me, right? So that's a dry drunk. Unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity, right? I got 30 days sober, and I'm still hanging out with my same friends, and I'm looking at them. They're still doing fine at work, and God darn it, he's drinking a six-pack while we watch the game. Yeah, if he can do it, so can I, right? After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, right? So we take that drink, right? And the phenomenon of craving develops. We saw what happens. Highlight to the end of the paragraph. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Okay, so highlight that. Circle psychic change, and underneath it we're going to write a few things. We're going to write change in my thinking / spiritual awakening. That's Dr. Silkworth he's calling it a psychic change, but it's simply a change in my thinking / spiritual awakening. Dr. Silkworth didn't understand it. It was phenomenon to him when he saw these people completely turn around. He didn't understand it, so he called it a psychic change. There's very little hope of his recovery. Now, right above that, where I read, this is repeated over and over, and I'm going to say, and over and over and over. Next to that, we're going to write step 1, powerless. Step 1, powerless, right? So we're going up above what we just wrote. So we keep doing the same thing over and over again, right? I got 30 days, right? And then I take that drink, and the world crashes down on me again. And when it gets bad enough, I stop drinking. This time I got 60 days, but I can't take it anymore. I take that first drink again, right? And it all crashes down. And that's done over and over and over. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, underline, the very same person who seemed doomed, just that little line there, right? The very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. Highlight to the end of the paragraph. The only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. And I want you to circle the word required. Right? So, they might call these things suggested, and we're going to talk about that too when we get to it. But here they're telling us they're required. And we're going to write, after a few simple rules, we're going to write the 12 steps. The 12 steps. Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal, "Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must, circle must stop, but I cannot. You must, circle must help me." Faced with this problem, highlight to inadequacy. If a doctor is honest with himself, he must, circle must, sometimes feel his own inadequacy. So off to the left, we're going to write, doctors can't help, we need more. And I'm gonna clarify that sentence a little bit. Doctors can't help, we need more. The good doctors are going to say, you better get your ass into AA and you better do everything they tell you. And that's I guess in that respect, if we follow the doctor's advice for a change, maybe he can help. But there's nothing he can prescribe to us that's gonna do it for us. And the doctors know it, right? Dr. Silkworth knew it. Although he gives all that is in him, it is often not enough. One feels, underlined a psychic change, that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Highlight that, and off to the left, write higher power. Higher power. That's what they talk about. They talk about a higher power. We got to get that power from somewhere because we're powerless. Though the aggregate, and aggregate means total, though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from psychiatric effort is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. So Silkworth would see, hundreds and hundreds of people coming through his clinic, and some people would come in horrible shape, just horrible shape. He would detox them. They would leave, right? They would leave and they'd never come back. But there were these crazy guys that they kept coming back over and over and over again, right? And these were the ones that he said, these are the ones that something is wrong with them, right? And we're going to talk about the different types of drinkers in just a minute. I do not hold with those who believe that alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control. Circle mental control and write willpower. Willpower. I'm going to talk about willpower too. And let's highlight to the end of the paragraph. I have had many men who had, for example, worked a period of months on some problem or business deal which was to be settled on a certain date favorable to them. They took a drink a day or so prior to the date, and then the phenomenon of craving, and underline that too, at once became paramount to all other interests, so that the important appointment was not met. I'll never forget, man, I got this new job, right? It starts in a week. I ain't going to drink. I ain't going to drink this one away, right? I don't drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. A day before that doggone job is going to start, I get so nervous and anxious. I say, I'm just going to have a couple to relax my nerves. I end up starting to drink, and then I don't make it to my first day of work, right? Another time, my boss said, John, we had Saturday morning meetings. John, if you show up drunk to one more Saturday meeting, you're fired. Right, so he sent me home that Saturday. So what do you think happens? I don't drink Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, right? I get to Friday and it's Friday night and I'm just a little bit anxious and I think to myself, well, it's going to be different. I'm just going to have one or two drinks. I showed up to that very next Saturday drunk and got fired. Right? I mean, it's insane what happens to us. These men were not drinking to escape. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control. There are many situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving which cause men to highlight the supreme sacrifice. Next to that, we're going to write suicide, okay, rather than continue to fight. So, and we're going to write this context, right, because regular folks, when they make the supreme sacrifice, that might be a soldier out there giving his life to save others, right? That's what it should mean. But in our case, the alcoholic, it just means that we're gonna take our life, right? Rather than continue to fight. Coward's way out. I was there. The classification of alcoholics. So we're going to look at some different types of drinkers now. The classification of alcoholics seems most difficult and in much detail is outside the scope of this book. So we're going to look at 5 different types. There are, of course, the psychopaths. Circle that, and we can write type 1. I suppose I got a name for the other one, so if you want to put a name, just put psycho, but it's essentially a psychopath is type 1. The psychopaths who are emotionally unstable. We are all familiar with this type. They are always going on the wagon for keeps. This time it's for real, I promise you, this time. They are always going on the wagon for keeps. They are over remorseful and make many resolutions, underline, but never a decision. And after but never a decision, write step 3. Made a decision, but never a decision. So draw a little line under make many, and underneath it we're going to write, so that was type 1, you can write psycho. Draw a little line under make many, and underneath it we're going to write type 2, and we just might as well write denial. Then there is the type of man who is unwilling to admit that he cannot take a drink. He plans various ways of drinking. He changes his brand or his environment. Right? It's those people I'm drinking with. If I get away from those guys, I'm going to be okay. It's that damn job, man. I'm going to be fine. I'm not going back to that bar, right? They must. So, type 2, denial. Put a line after environment, and we're going to write type 3, allergy has gone, question mark. Type 3, allergy has gone, question mark. There is the type who always believes that after being entirely free from alcohol for a period of time, he can take a drink without danger. By God, I've got 90 days sober. I haven't had a drink for 90 days. Now, I've been going to a meeting every night to get this accomplished, but I'm beginning to think this whole thing is blown out of proportion. And you know what? I don't think I'm an alcoholic, by God. If I was an alcoholic, there's no way I could have 90 days, right? I'm gonna go have a drink, right? Allergy has gone, question mark, right? And then we take a drink, and that drink kicks our ass. Put a line after danger. Then there is the manic depressive type, who is perhaps the least understood by his friends and about whom a whole chapter could be written. So we're going to write 4, bipolar. 4, bipolar, up and down and all around. You know, a lot of people, they go in, they're taking all kinds of antidepressants, right? It's like, well, have you told the psychiatrist that you're doing a quart a day and smoking weed in addition, right? We get off of this stuff, we find that we're not going to need that kind of stuff. Then we're gonna draw a little line under could be written. Now, the next one is type 5, and of course, I'm a type 5, and I'm sure there's a lot of type 5s in the room. Then there are types entirely normal in every respect, except in the effect alcohol has upon them. They are often able, intelligent, friendly people. Right? That's type 5. Only an alcoholic would write that about himself. So, type 5, and I'm sure Bill Wilson was a type 5. So, so those are the type of 5 drinkers. Now, Bill is we're gonna highlight the whole next paragraph, but before I read it, he just described the 5 different types of drinkers, right? Now, if everybody in this room had a couple of drinks, what he's just said is we're all going to react differently, right? One person is going to be over in the corner, and they're going to be going, oh, boo-hoo, the world doesn't treat me right. I got shafted again, right? Another person is going to be on top of the table. They're going to be dancing, hooping, hollering, laughing, having a great time, right? 2 other people are going to be in the corner getting in a fight. They're going to be getting a fight. 2 other people are going to be in the other corner making passes at each other, right? Ripping the clothes off, right? So we're all going to react differently after a couple of drinks, except what are we all going to do? We're all going to do one thing. We're all going to look for that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th drink. That's the allergy, right? So this whole next paragraph that we highlighted, we're going to write next to it, we're going to write, it's a lifelong disease. All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. That's why we're writing it's a lifelong disease next to it. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. Okay, so we got that highlighted. Now, entire abstinence. If that was the only thing wrong with us, we could pass that hat around, we could all throw a buck in it, and we could all go home and never have to come to another meeting. But that's only half our problem. That's only half. The other half is the obsession of the mind. The obsession of the mind, which is an idea that overcomes all ideas to the contrary, no matter what we just went through, and tells us that it's okay to take that first drink. This immediately precipitates us into a seething cauldron, right? The boiling pot of debate. Much has been written pro and con, but among physicians, highlight to the end, the general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. I'm supposed to smash my book down there. So, you know what? Most of us are still out there dying. Most of us are out there dying. Most of us that come into these rooms and dip our toes into this thing go back out and die. So that was true then, and that's true today, that most of us are dying. Now the lucky ones that are able to become willing enough to take this program of action, right, as a course of treatment, are the ones that are able to change their lives. Change their lives. So at the bottom we're going to write the great craving. The great craving. We are different, or we are DIFF period. We start, we can't stop. The great craving. We are different. We start, we can't stop. The great craving, we are different. We start, we can't stop. Let's see here. Okay, good. I got time. The great craving, we are different. We start, we can't stop. What is the solution? Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. About 1 year prior to this experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. So off to the right we can write Hank Parkhurst, Parkhurst, Hank Parkhurst, and you can write To the Employers. That's the chapter he wrote. Hank Parkhurst, and he wrote To the Employers. About 1 year prior to this experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. He had but partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage and seemed to be a case of pathological mental deterioration. So the Doc Silkworth thought he had wet brain. He had lost everything worthwhile in life and was only living, one might say, to drink. Highlight the next sentence. He frankly admitted and believed that for him there was no hope. Okay, so next to that write step one. Step one. He frankly admitted and believed that for him there was no hope. Following the elimination of alcohol, so they detoxed him, there was found to be no permanent brain injury. I mean, he lucked out. Underline the next sentence. He accepted the plan outlined in this book. Okay, highlight that. Next to it write step 2, solution. Step 2, solution. 1 year later, he called to see me, and I experienced a very strange sensation. I knew the man by name and partially recognized his features, but there all resemblance ended. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck had emerged a man brimming over with self-reliance and contentment. I talked with him for some time, but was not able to bring myself to feel that I had known him before. To me, he was a stranger, and so he left me. A long time has passed with no return to alcohol. So you can draw a bracket next to that whole paragraph and write explanation of a psychic change. Explanation of a psychic change. Doc didn't even recognize him. This isn't the same guy. The guy that got out of there was getting ready to put a diaper on and go to the nut house. So explanation of a psychic change. Now, one other thing's here, but partially recognized his features. I was drinking quite a bit. One of the advantages when I stopped drinking, I got my face back. Man, my face was all puffy and just is horrible. I said after about a month off of alcohol, oh my God, look at that guy. I haven't seen him for years. A long time has passed with no return to alcohol. When I need a mental uplift, I often think of another case brought in by a physician prominent in New York. Highlight the next 3 lines. The patient had made his own diagnosis and, deciding his situation hopeless, there it is, underline it again, had hidden in a deserted barn, determined to die. Okay, so off to the left, write step 1. Step 1. Off to the right, we're going to write Fitzmayo, Fitzmayo, and underneath it, write Our Southern Friend. That's his story, page 208. And then also write and page 55. So it's Fitzmayo, Our Southern Friend, page 208, and page 55. So, here's Fitzmayo. You know what? It's better off for me, and it's better off for my family if I'm dead, because, I don't want to get their hopes up. I've been bringing them down for years. The best solution for everybody involved is for me to take my life. He was rescued by a searching party and in desperate condition brought to me. Following his physical rehabilitation, he had a talk with me in which he frankly stated he thought the treatment a waste of effort, unless I could assure him, which no one ever had, that in the future he would have the willpower, underline willpower, to resist the impulse to drink. So, he got detoxed and he said, it ain't going to work, man. A time's going to come and I'm going to drink. I no matter what, I've always drank again and it's always led to the same situation. Just let me die, damn it. Let me die, right? His alcoholic problem was so complex and his depression so great that we felt his only hope would be through what we then called moral psychology. So circle that again. And again, we're going to write values, ethics, right? So, moral development, right? So, you're no longer out there lying and cheating, manipulating, stealing, doing whatever we need to do to keep ourselves, in booze and whatnot. Just try this, they said. And even that they doubted would have any effect. Highlight the next line. However, he did become sold, circle the word sold, on the ideas contained in this book. So highlight that and write work the steps. Work the steps. He has not had a drink for a great many years. I see him now and then, and he is as fine a specimen of manhood as one could wish to meet. And then highlight the last little bit. I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through, and though perhaps he came to scoff, he may remain to pray. That's coming from a scientist. So we're not done. We got some notes to read, so we're going to write something too. This is something that I want all of you to ask yourselves, but this is what you're going to ask your sponsee when you're taking somebody through the book. So you can write Ask Sponsee, because we're going to have a lot of Ask Sponsees in here, because the whole idea is that when we recover, we go out and help other people. Are you willing to read this book all the way through? So that's what you're going to ask yourselves, and that's what you're going to ask the people that you're out there helping. Are you willing to read this book all the way through? And then you can write end week 2, but I got just a couple more notes. Okay, are you willing to read this book all the way through? So, I'm out there drinking, right? I'm out there drinking, and I realize that something's wrong. I'm losing jobs. I'm getting in fights with people, DWIs. And the first thing that I tried, and I think most of us try this, is to control our drinking while drinking. I'm going to control my drinking while drinking. If I go to the liquor store at 10 to 10 and I buy just a half pint of liquor, right? The liquor store will be closed, and then that's all I'll drink, and I'll be fine. Well, we just read about the craving. I would drink that half pint of liquor, and then I'd have to go to the bar. So now I'm out driving around drunk. I'd have to go to the bars to drink because of the craving, right? I went to a doctor, and I said, "Doc, I read about this stuff called Antabuse. Prescribe me Antabuse." Antabuse is a pill. If you take it in the morning and you try to drink that night, you become deathly ill. So I would get up and I would take my Antabuse pill in the morning. You know, along about 5 o'clock, I'd go, I got to drink, right? So I would drink anyway, right? And I found that if I drank and did cocaine, I would suffer for about 3 hours, and then I'd be okay, and I could keep drinking, right? So I would do that. I would drink, and I would do that, right? I wake up the next morning, I'm sick, I'm in all kinds of trouble. What do? I take another Antabuse tablet. Long about 5 o'clock, I'm like, right? And I do it again, right? So I'm trying to control my drinking by various means, and it's not working, right? So you try this for some years, and finally I simply realize that I can't drink anymore. The only thing that I have, I got to stop. I can't even have one drink. So let's go back to this disease chart, right? Willpower, right? So we're down here, we're at that emotional barometer there down on the bottom, right? Willpower. I am never going to take another drink as long as I live. So the right bottom, right? The addiction process. I'm never going to take... Mom, I promise you I will never take another drink as long as I live, and I meant it. I meant it like you couldn't believe. And I was sure I could do it because, you know what, I mean, willpower, I could go out and get any job. I could sell any product when I was in college. I could not go to a single class and still I could do anything. I can do this. I can absolutely do this. Never taken another drink. We say this, we mean it, we believe it. We assume we can do this. As the days pass, that emotional barometer starts to go up, right? The little things in life start to get at us. Maybe it's a nagging wife. Maybe it's a complaining husband. Maybe it's screaming kids, mean boss, flat tire, broken shoelaces, didn't get that raise at work, burnt the bacon, aging parents, taking a lot of my time. All of these things, the emotions start to build up. They start to build up. And all of a sudden, we remember the ease and comfort that a couple of drinks can bring. And I say, no, I'm not drinking, man. I'm not drinking. More days pass, right? I've got 90 days, man. 90 days, maybe I'm not even an alcoholic. No, I'm not going to drink. I knew what happened. No, I remember what happened. I said I wasn't going to drink. My emotions continue to build up. And all of a sudden I think, well, after all this crap I'm going through, I think I deserve a drink. No, I'm not drinking. The emotions continue. They build up. And all of a sudden what happens, we think of what alcohol can do for us, and we forget what it does to us. Right? And we see nothing wrong with taking a drink. Now, when our brain sees nothing wrong with taking a drink, our willpower doesn't work anymore. Willpower don't work. Right? Don't care who you are. Doesn't work. We forget about the jailhouse, the car wreck, the divorce court, the hospitals, the job loss, the bankruptcy, the fights with our loved ones. We forget all that. And we see only that alcohol will give us some ease and comfort. And we see nothing wrong with taking the drink, so willpower stops working. We take that drink, go over the top, we trigger the allergy, right? We trigger the allergy, we go through the well-known stages of a spree, we emerge at the bottom, remorseful with a firm resolution never to do this again. Now this time, Mom, I promise. Honey, I promise. This time, I promise. And we repeat this over and over and over and over. We cannot do anything about the allergy of the body. We can't do a damn thing about that. We must attack the problem in the mind. So what we've got to do is we've got to find a way to be sober without being restless, irritable, and discontented. We've got to find a way to live and not be filled with guilt, shame, and remorse. Now, just maybe, if I could find a way to live where I have peace of mind, serenity, and happiness, find a way to live sober where I can have that sense of ease and comfort without taking a couple of drinks, find a way to live where I don't need to take a couple of drinks to feel better, that's called recovery. That is called recovery. So we use the program of AA to find peace of mind, serenity, and happiness with no drink or drug necessary. Or in my case, gambling. I relapsed on gambling. That's what the steps do for us. Fellowship and meetings alone will not bring this about. Guys, if you're a real alcoholic, that isn't going to work. Now, we get some problem drinkers that come into AA that get sentenced by the judge. A problem drinker, and we're going to read about it, a problem drinker goes to meetings and they can stop without doing any of the work. But they're not an alcoholic. Now, what really is a tragedy is when a problem drinker goes to meetings and stops drinking without doing the steps and then starts sponsoring a real alcoholic. Oh my God. Because all this can do, the only thing that a problem drinker who thinks he's an alcoholic, but he didn't have to do the work, the only thing he can do is say, go to more meetings, show up early, make coffee, join the Sober Softball League. Call me before you drink, right? No, by that time it's too late. So we got to be real careful. So again, we've got to find that way. And we use the program of AA to find peace of mind, serenity, happiness with no drunk or drug necessary. That's what the steps do for us. Meetings and fellowship alone, again, they won't do it. The program of action in this book will do it. So we work through the steps. We live by the steps. We practice the steps every day. And we're going to learn how to do this here at Code Blue. Now, when we do this, we expel the obsession to drink. So we get that crap out of our head. And we learn how to become happily and usefully whole. That's what recovery is. And again, meetings and fellowship alone, they ain't going to do it. The steps will. So the other thing is when we have this awakening, what do? We go to the newcomer and we teach the newcomer the steps. Right? We get it to the next person. And whenever we do that, we get to go through the work again, right? And I don't have the attitude of, I got to go through this. I'm like, I get to go through these steps again because that I'm going to grow as a human and my life keeps getting better and better and better. So we're going to teach these. And people that say you can't teach the steps, nonsense. That's what we do. We teach the steps to the newcomer. And you don't have to write this because I'm going to cover it later. But I got this from Clancy, and I love it, man. You know, when we go to meetings and we do stuff, you know, the first thing we got to do is we got to be quiet. We got to be quiet. I remember when I first came to meetings, I couldn't even sit through a whole meeting. I was shaking so bad. We be quiet, right? Then we listen. We come in here, we listen, right? Then we remember. That's why I got notebooks, because I hear something, I want to write it down. We remember, and then we practice. We practice what we've heard. And then we teach other people, right? And that's how we get better, and that's how we grow as people. All right, I can't believe it. We actually finished early tonight, so I'm sure I forgot something. So we end. If anybody didn't sign on the phone list, please sign your name on the way out. Get on this phone list. And we end with the third step prayer on page 63, I think. Third step prayer, page 63. If you can take a knee, do so, but you don't have to. God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. Peace. All right, next week we got Bill's story, which is the classic example of somebody who has the problem and what happened to him.